Okay, welcome to MailChimp Advanced Tools. This is the fourth and final session in our MailChimp series. Just some kind of, the things that they tell you before you get started. My vocabulary is failing me today. So before we get started, just some information about Zoom, if you're unfamiliar with it. If you're in full screen mode and need to access the rest of your computer, if you hit the escape key, they'll let you get back to your desktop, your start menu and all that. If you have a question or a comment at any time, please go ahead and ask your questions as we're going along. I'm not going to have, throughout the time, I'm not going to stop for question and answers. But if you go ahead and place your questions into the chat, Michelle will get them to me as I'm going along, and we'll answer them in that way. As you're using the chat, be aware of some privacy settings on there. If you don't want everybody who's attending to be able to see, you just want to switch that over so that it's only panelists. If there's an option for it to only be to me, please don't do that, because I'm not watching the chat, Michelle is. So please do all panelists if that is an option in your chat window. We will be sending out a recording as well as some other resources later today. So if you need to see some of the information again, if it goes a little bit too fast, just remember that you will have access to the full recording afterwards. We will also send out a survey later today. It just has about 4 or 5 questions on it. We're using those. We're kind of starting to revamp these webinars a little bit because MailChimp keeps changing. And so we want to make sure we have the most up-to-date information, and your feedback is an important part of that. So if we don't cover something that you wish I had, if you just have questions that come up, etc., please include that in your survey so that we know how to keep making these better each time. Today we're going to be talking about merge tags, what they are, how to use them. We're also going to be talking about final welcome forms, final unsubscribe forms, and then subscribe forms. Another form is called forward to a friend. So there's a lot of forms in there. I'll explain those as we're going along, what they are, why they're important again. Typically in this webinar, I do teach something called MailChimp Subscribe, which is an iPad or tablet device program that you can take to churches to help people subscribe. However, Zoom today is not cooperating and it's not letting me sign on with my iPad. And because of that, I'm going to create a video hopefully in the next couple of weeks, and we'll put that out through Touchpoints so that you still have access to that training, even though I'm not able to do it today. So I apologize for that. Not much I can do if Zoom won't cooperate with me. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to MailChimp. Please do let me know if you're not currently looking at my MailChimp screen, because if you're not, we want to change that and make sure that you're able to. The first thing that we're going to talk about again today is merge tags. And so merge tags look like this. So we've talked about these in previous webinars as they pertain to your footer. And so it's this asterisk, straight line, capital letters, straight line, asterisk, that's a merge tag. Remember in your footer, we said, please don't delete those, please don't change those unless you know what you're doing. Don't type in current year for the current year, just leave it as it is. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about those and other ways that you can use them. So what merge tags are doing is it's pulling information from other places in your MailChimp account and using that information to fill in the blank, basically. And so you can use merge tags to personalize your emails a little bit. You can use them to connect some of your social media. There's a variety of things that you can do with them. So we're going to explore some of that. Before we get started, I wanted to show you a couple of places where MailChimp is actually pulling the merge tags from, the information that they're using from. And so your list or your audience is one of those places. So if you go and look at your contacts in your audience, you'll see these column names, first name, last name. If we go this way, I guess none of that information really pertains. But these first names and last names, these are two of the places that MailChimp is going to pull from to create a merge tag. And so, for example, in your email, if you wanted to say, Dear Daisy, Dear Donald, Dear Mad Hatter, instead of just Dear Friends or Dear Partners, we're going to use a merge tag in order to enable you to do that. Okay. Same thing with last names. If you want to say first and last name, or Mrs. or Mr. so-and-so, you would use the last name merge tag. And this is where they're pulling the information from. If you're going to use these kinds of merge tags, you do want to take a look through your database. Like, I don't have a last name, this is a company, but you want to go through and make sure the first names and last names are what you want to show up in your emails. So if you have somebody in your letters that is named Jan, but you pulled it over from TNT, and so your MailChimp says Janet, you'll probably want to go in and edit that before you send it out. Okay, so just some things to think about before you start using merge tags. I'm going to show you how to set up something called a default tag in a little while. I'm not going to go into that now because I'm afraid it'll be confusing. This is just one of those places that the merge information is being pulled from. Another place it's being pulled from is from your profile information. And so if I go over to my profile, settings, contact information, okay, this is where you can edit your address, your personal name, if you want to include a phone number. This is where they're pulling some of that information to put into your footer. Okay, so if you ever needed to change the address that's showing up in your footer, this is where you would come to do it. All right, so those are a couple of places where this information is being pulled from. Now, talking about how we're going to use merge tags. So again, you use them to kind of personalize your message. One of the places that you can use merge tags is in the body of your campaigns or your emails themselves. And you can put them in any area that has a text block. Okay, there's some cases where you can actually use a button to use a merge tag, but that'll make sense later down the road. Okay, so for right now, if you're going to include a merge tag into the body of your email, say I want to say Dear Jan, Dear Bill, Dear George, anything like that, you want it inside of a text box. Okay, so if I want it inside of this text box, I'll just go over to the right to make my edits, and then put in, Dear, and now I don't want to type the first name, right? Because if I type Bob, then everybody who gets this newsletter is going to get Dear Bob, and that's not what we want to do. We want it to be customized for each partner. So to do that, we're actually going to put in a merge tag. In order to do that, you'll see this menu up here on the right that just says merge tags on it. This has a list of many of the merge tags that are available in MailChimp. I'm not going to go over all of them today because we would have to do a webinar that's just about merge tags. But if you want to know more ways to customize, if you open this cheat sheet, it'll give you a web page like this. And it has many, you can see as I scroll down, there's numerous merge tags that you can use to edit and customize your stuff. If you get lost in that as you're trying to figure it out, just send me an email and I'll do the best I can to help you. I don't know all the merge tags, but definitely let me know if you get stuck. So if you want to include the first name of your partner, you go to this merge tag menu and go down to first name and just choose that. Now again, you don't want to type any partner's first name in between these front lines. You want to leave it just as it is, okay? You can put a comma after it if you want to have the comma. You can choose to have a last name as well. If you do, you'd want to put a space and then go to the last name. Now to preview this, to make sure it's showing up the way you want it to show up, make sure that you save and close before you go into your preview mode. I was getting really frustrated the first time I was trying to figure this out because I would make the change, hit preview, and it wouldn't be there. And the reason is because of the save and close. So every time you put in a new merge tag, in order to check it out, you have to click save and close first. Again, I'm emphasizing that because it caused a huge headache for me the first time I went through this. So to check out what it's going to look like, you enter preview mode. And every time you're going to have to do this as well. So even though I'm clicking it over this first time, every time I go to preview, it'll show up like this, and you have to do it again. Okay? So once you click this over, it'll put in a first and last name to show you an example of what it's going to look like. Okay, so that's how you do the first and last name ones. One thing that's really important, so I actually ran into this problem today, is I put these merge tags, I went to put these merge tags in, and when I went to this merge tags list, first name and last name and greeting and salutation weren't there. It was only email. It's like, why are these suddenly gone? Where'd they go? What the problem was is that I hadn't chosen an audience yet. Okay, so I had skipped this 2-step right here where you're saying what audience, which for new accounts you can only have one audience. But if you don't put an audience here, nothing's going to show up. Those merge tags just don't show up. Okay, because remember I told you they pull that first and last name from these columns. Sorry. Okay, I told you that they pull it from this information. So people who have paid accounts are able to have more than one audience. People who have older accounts sometimes have more than one audience. And because of that, MailChimp, if you haven't told them which audience you want to pull from, or maybe you only want to use a segment of your audience, until you set this, you will not be able to find all of the merge tags in that MailChimp, in that drop-down list. Okay, so if you go in and they're missing, that's why they're missing. The next merge tag we're going to look at, okay, I'm going to put all of these at the top of my email. It's not necessarily going to be the best place for each of these, but it's just easier than having to scroll up and down the page. So just for ease sake, I'm going to put them at the top, and I'll try to give some best practices as we're going along, so you know maybe a better place to put them. You'll also notice, I wanted to point out that you'll see a greeting and salutation tag in this list. That won't show up for everybody. So those 2 merge tags are specific from TNT Connect. And so if you set those fields in TNT Connect, and you've allowed TNT to pull them into your MailChimp database, then those are going to show up. So this is also important to kind of note if you're going to make custom merge tags. So I worked with a department probably a couple of years ago now, who they wanted to pull in dates and locations from a spreadsheet. And so we had to merge those columns into MailChimp, and then they appeared here as tags. If that's something you're trying to do and what I said made no sense at all, email me and we'll set up a time to talk and I'll help you through it. Okay, so don't stress yourself out if that was not helpful. The next tag that we're going to look at today is the Facebook like button. So I've referred to this a couple of times, specifically in the tips and tricks webinar where we talked about our reports, and I talked about the social shares. And I told you if you put your newsletter into Facebook and somebody hits the like button inside of Facebook, that's not going to show up on your reports. This is what you have to use in order for that to become something that MailChimp reports on. Hopefully that's clear. And I'm going to talk more about this as we're going here. So if I scroll down and go to social sharing, you see this Facebook like button. If I click on that, I get this merge tag here. And what it ends up looking like, okay, is this little thumbs up sign with a like on it. What happens when a partner clicks on that button is, well, two things happen. One is it shows up on your reports. Okay, so it's just a social engagement tool that allows people to respond right away to your content. Okay, so they click it and it shows up in your MailChimp report saying that somebody liked your newsletter. The other thing it does is, you know that news feed that kind of happens on MailChimp where it shows what people are liking? It'll show up in that, but it won't create a post anywhere on Facebook. Okay, so that like isn't going to post it to your partner's page. It's not going to post it to yours. It's simply a social engagement tool. Okay, so there's no other function for that button except it gets people a way to respond right away. So that's what that is. Going back, the other thing that you can do with social media, let me get rid of this real quick. Another thing that you can do with social media is called social share buttons. So again, I'm going to scroll down and you'll see the social share links. And if I place that in, it says MC top share, save and close, show you what it looks like. And you'll see it has all these social media icons that came up. So Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest. These are not images for your own account. These are just the websites themselves. So the purpose of them is basically if you have advocates who like to share your newsletter on their social media account, this is a good way to help them do that. So if they want to share on Twitter, now they can click on Twitter and they're going to be invited to share your newsletter on their Twitter feed. Same thing with Facebook, Pinterest, LinkedIn, Google+, Instapaper. Okay, it's allowing them to share it on their social media platform. If you're going to include something like this, it's probably not going to get used at all unless you talk to your partners about it. So if you have a couple of people in your partnership team that you know like to advocate for you in this way, you're going to want to have a conversation about this. Okay, so whether it's an email where you take a screenshot and circle it, or a phone call, or sitting down together, but in some way you need to have a conversation about what this is, or people aren't likely to use it. Okay, and typically, of course, you don't want to put this at the top of your email, but this is one of those things that you would put down here instead. And so that's all that is. The next thing that we're going to look at is another part of Facebook. So you can actually put your Facebook profile into MailChimp. What that means, let me show you. And there's two options for this. You'll see it has this Facebook profile and then Facebook profile plus recent wall posts. I highly encourage you not to do Facebook profile plus recent wall posts. The reason for that is the recent wall posts is what you're putting on your own timeline, right? So if you put a picture, if you put a silly joke or a quote or something like that, that's what it's going to pull from, and it's going to give you the people like 2 or 3 of your last posts. The problem with this is if you post a video or a picture, sorry, my voice squeaked, a video or a picture, and you just put like one sentence about that picture, the sentence that you put is the only thing that's going to show up here. It's not going to show the picture as well. So if that sentence made no sense, if you couldn't see the picture, now your partners are confused and have no idea why you posted that. Okay, so unless you're very, very, very intentional about what you put on Facebook, this is going to get you in trouble. Okay, it's going to become very frustrating for your partners who maybe don't understand Facebook, don't understand how MailChimp works, and now they don't know why you're sharing this content with them. Okay, so just exercise a lot of caution. If you share videos and photos, this is not the thing that you want to share with your partners from MailChimp. Right? A better option if you want to do this is this Facebook profile. And let me show you what it looks like. Okay, so you'll see that it has Facebook, my name, how many friends I have. I'm not sure why that's important, but they put it there. And then about me. So if you're going to use this as part of your newsletter, you need to get on Facebook and fill out that About Me section. Maybe I personally actually don't know what's on that About Me section, but I imagine you just want to share the information that you want all of your partners to get to see. If you do this, I would recommend going back and forth between MailChimp and Facebook and making sure the content that you want to show up shows up in the way you want it to. It also has the friend me link, so if somebody wants to add you to their Facebook friends, it's a way for them to do that. If you're going to use this, again, I wouldn't put it at the top like this. I would put it somewhere down at the bottom where we have these other social media links. One caveat for this particular merge tag is that if you're husband and wife, you can't put both of your Facebooks like this. Okay, so last week in Tips and Tricks, we talked about how to integrate the Facebook account. It's only going to show up for the individual whose Facebook account is integrated. So if you integrated the wife's Facebook page, then only hers is going to show up. There's no way to get both of them. If you want both of them to show up, we really recommend that you use these down here instead. Okay, so in the MailChimp campaigns webinar, I talked about this social follow versus social share. So if you want people to be able to share your Facebook, you put it here. If you want people to go to your Facebook profile, you would use these. If you use these, then you can even see right here, I have 2 different Facebook accounts that have both the husband and wife's accounts linked in this campaign. I'm not going to go over all the details right now of how to set this up because I've already done that. I did that in the MailChimp campaign webinar. If you have questions or problems with this, let us know, and we'll either address it at the end of the webinar today, or we can connect individually, and I can help you out with that. We also have, do a little plug, we also have MailChimp workshops. So if you've been to these webinars and still need some extra help, we do workshops probably about once a month. And it's just a time for people who've already been to these webinars to come in and get some extra help from me, Michelle, and one another on how to do whatever you're having problems with. So just kind of keep that in mind as an opportunity as well. Let me make sure. So the other thing I've mentioned a couple of times is that you can personalize your merge tag. So if you want more merge tags than you already have, one of the ways that you can do that is by adding more columns. So in the first webinar, Introduction to MailChimp, I showed you how to import contacts from an Excel sheet, right? You can either save it as a CSV file, or you can copy and paste directly into MailChimp from the Excel sheet. If you want to include the dates of something that people attend, so maybe you went to 3 different church meetings and you want to remind people of the date that they attended one of your talks, okay? You can include dates as one of your Excel sheet columns, and then that'll automatically become a merge tag because it'll be a column that shows up here. Same thing if there's a location. If you want to do the name of the location, you can make that a column here, and that'll allow you to turn it into a merge tag that you can, so that you can personalize your emails in that way. So there's actually quite a bit you can do with merge tags if you want to get creative with it. The way that you can play with some of your merge tag information is by going to your audience, okay, going to manage audience, and then go to settings. Okay, so audience, manage audience, settings, and then going to this audience field and merge tags. Okay, so once you're in here, you're going to see the merge tags that currently exist in your database. If you've created those extra columns, they should automatically show up here. You shouldn't have to manually add them. It should go ahead and show up. If you do manually add them, it's going to create a column in your database, and I've not done it that way, but there is a way to do it if that's what you need to do. If you're in that position, let me know, and I'll try to play with it some more and see if I can figure it out, and we can figure it out together if we need to do that. The big thing that I want to show you from this list is this default merge tag value. So earlier I encouraged you, if you're going to use the first name merge tags or the last name merge tags, to make sure you scroll through your list and the appropriate first name or last name is there. If you happen to have some contacts in your database or in your audience that you don't have first name for, you need to come to this screen and set the default tag. So what will happen is if I use a first name merge tag, but say 4 of my partners I don't have first names for, it's going to use this default merge tag instead. Okay, so you could say something like, dear friend, dear partner, dear whatever you want to put here. Okay, something that's appropriate, obviously. But you can put in a default here, so where you don't have information for somebody, it'll use this to fill it in. Okay, so handy tool if you happen to not have the names of everybody that you're reaching out to. And that is the basics of what we're going to cover in merge tags. Let us know if you have questions about that, of course. I know that's can be a complicated topic for a lot of people. The next thing that we're going to talk about is forms. And so there are several forms that we're going to take a look at. It includes the final welcome form, the final unsubscribe form, forward to a friend, and then just a sign up form. The first form that I'm going to do is going to be the final welcome form. It's going to seem like I'm going to spend way more time explaining that form than I am the other ones. The reason that I'm doing that is because the way that I set up that final welcome form is the same way that you set up all of the other ones. And once you set up one of them, those settings carry over to your other forms. So you can't make one form black and the next one purple. If you make one black, they're all going to be black, and that's the way that Facebook or the way that MailChimp does it, because they're trying to create a brand or a certain feel to all of your emails. So that's why it's going to seem like I'm spending so much time with final welcome as opposed to the others, because again, one setting carries over into the other sections. Okay, so even if you decide I don't want a final welcome, you can use the same steps that I'm showing you in this part of the webinar to make edits to the other sections. So the same steps I do for final welcome, you can skip that and use those same steps to do the final unsubscribe. So whatever of these forms you want to use, follow the exact same steps that I'm going to show you to start off with. Before we do that, I want to go over to, let me see, I'm going to go to audience. I need to go to settings again. There's just one more screen that I want to point out to you guys. I'm going to go to audience name and defaults. Okay, and then scroll down, and there's just a couple of settings that you can play with from this screen. The first is enable double opt-in. What that means is if you create a sign-up form and somebody uses your sign-up form to subscribe to your newsletter, you can choose to turn this on. If you do, they'll receive an email saying, you signed up for this email. Are you sure you want to be signed up for this email? Then they can say yes, and they'll be signed up. If you don't check this, when somebody uses the sign-up form, they won't receive an email. They'll just be signed up. So this is a personal preference. I don't turn it on. Some people think it's important. If it's something that you find important, feel free to change that setting. Enable reCAPTCHA is, all those options where they're trying to make sure you're not a robot. This is allowing you to add something like that to your sign-up forms. Probably more helpful for people who are doing e-commerce and have thousands of people that they're dealing with instead of maybe a couple of hundred. So if it's something that you think is important, again, feel free to use it. For the most part, it's really not that important for what we're doing. Enable GDPR fields. Of course, that's important if you're in Europe and you need to follow the laws that go along with that. If you are in a position where you need to follow those laws, of course, you'll want to check this box and customize the forms in order to fulfill those requirements. If you have more questions about that, this is not an area that I'm an expert in. If you just Google MailChimp GDPR fields, they'll have a lot of help pages and information for you. So if that's something you need to learn, MailChimp does already have that written out for you. If you're stuck or worried about something, you can reach out and I will try to connect you to somebody who might have better information about that than I would. Scrolling down further, you'll see campaign defaults. So this is when you go to set up a campaign. Sorry, this is taking its time on me. These are your defaults. So like from has my name and has the email address already there. Well, it's pulling that from here. So if I were married and I wanted my husband to be a default name as well, I would add him here. And then I don't have to set it when I go to create a new campaign. Okay, same thing with email address. If you want to have it, so if your email subject is going to be nearly the same every time, you could put that for, maybe yours is just ministry update with the date. You could put ministry update in here and then just add the date each time. If that's something that's going to make your life easier, of course, feel free to use this however it's going to be most helpful to you. These three options over here, the final welcome and the send unsubscribe confirmation, you have to turn these features on. And this is just one of the places you can do it. There's two places where you can do it. This is one of them. So if you decide you want to use the final welcome and the unsubscribe confirmation, this is a place where you can turn that on. I know I haven't talked about what these are yet. I'm getting ready to, so just bear with me a little bit. The last one is to let users pick plain text or HTML. If you have partners who have problems with internet connection, or for example, our missionaries in PNG, they have to pay a certain amount of money depending on what they're downloading. If you have partners on your team like that, it might be a good idea to turn this on and let people pick plain text, so that way they don't have to download the colors and the pictures and all of that. Okay, so it just makes it a smaller file for people to download if that's something that's important for them. There are subscriber notifications, so if you want to set up subscriber notifications, we talked about this a little bit in the intro. It's a new section in MailChimp, so I don't want to talk too much about it because I haven't really looked at it yet. So talking about the final welcome email and the unsubscribe confirmation, a final welcome email is only for those partners who, again, are using a subscribe form to sign up for your list. Right? So if somebody uses a subscribe form or a sign up form to get onto your mailing list, you can set this up so that once they sign up, they get an email that says, welcome to this list. This is the kind of content that you can expect to receive. Appreciate your prayers, appreciate your partnership. You can write that message however you want to write it, but that's what this is. Okay, so if you're using subscribe forms, it's just a way to welcome people to your list. The unsubscribe confirmation to subscribers is one that we tend to recommend to people, especially if you have people on your list who forward your emails a lot. Okay, I think it's in the intro, it's either intro or campaigns webinar. I talked about if people forward your emails and the person who the email is forwarded to hits unsubscribe, it unsubscribes the original partner instead of the person it's forwarded to. Okay, so now your partner has been unintentionally unsubscribed. So this is sort of protection against that happening. If somebody unsubscribes, this email, and I'll show you what it looks like. This email will be sent to that person, and it'll say, hey, you've unsubscribed. Did you mean to unsubscribe? If not, here's the button to redo it. Okay, so it does still unsubscribe that partner, but it automatically gives them a way to resubscribe if that wasn't by their intention. Okay, so it's a nice thing to have in case accidents happen. They happen. I've had several people for this has happened too. So if that's something that you're concerned about, it's helpful to have it set up. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and head over to Forms. And again, you're going to do that from your audience screen. Okay, so from your audience screen, we're going to go to Manage Audience, then go down to Sign Up Forms. Okay, Sign Up Forms, there's 4 kinds of Sign Up Forms. Sorry, I thought it was going to go to a different screen than it did. The first is the Form Builder, and that's what we're going to spend most of our time in. Okay, and this is just setting up a form that you can email, that you can, that's going to give you a URL that you can share with other people, that you can create into a button if you want. Okay, so there's a lot that you can do with that. The embedded forms are if you have a website. So if you have your own missionary website or blog, etc., you can create an embedded form so that when people are on your website, they don't have to click a link or click a button to go subscribe. They'll actually see the subscribe form itself on the web page. Okay. The subscriber pop-up, I encourage you to use wisdom if you're going to use a pop-up. Think about those websites that you go to and you go to leave the website and something pops up over on top. It says, are you sure you want to leave? Why don't you sign up for our email list first? Why do you want to buy our book before you leave? Do you want to do this before you leave? So sometimes that's really helpful because it helps people get something that they didn't know about or reminds them to do something. In this case, you'd be asking somebody if they want to subscribe to your newsletter. Make sure that you have some control over the settings if you're going to do this, because this can become annoying, right? Is it going to pop up every time they move their mouse to close the screen? Is it going to come up every time they open the page, or just the first time? Because it can just become something that's very, very frustrating to your partners. So only use this if you think it's really going to go over well. Use wisdom. Form integrations go with something called Woohoo and Squarespace. I think Squarespace is a web page that you can set up your own personal web page. I don't know much about either of those platforms, but if you need to do a form integration, this is where you can do it. I'm not sure what it does. If it's something that you're interested in or you use one of those platforms, again, if you'll use Google, there's Google MailChimp, form integrations, and they'll tell you a little bit more about what that's for, how to use it, etc. So we're going to go ahead and scroll up and go to Form Builder. I'm going to click Select on the right. Okay, so this drop-down menu is important because it's going to show you where every single form that you can create exists. So there's These are all the ways to subscribe. This is all the unsubscribe, update profile, other bits. Okay, so there's quite a big list here. We're going to start with a final welcome email. Okay. So again, this is the second place where you can turn this on. So if you want to turn it on from here, this turns it on. This lets subscribers decide if they want to pick plain text or HTML when they're subscribing to your emails. So if you want these things to be on, this is just another place that you can do it. If you scroll down, you're going to see a preview of what the final welcome email looks like. Okay, your subscription to our list has been confirmed. This is the name of the audience. So whatever name you gave your audience, or if there was a default name, this is where you're going to see it. And then here's the information that they submitted to them when they signed up for your newsletter. If you're fine with the way this looks, you don't have to change anything. Okay, but if you wanted to have certain colors and certain fonts, if you want to dress it up a little bit, then they give you lots of options to be able to do that. So one of the things that you can change is your subscription to this list has been confirmed. So maybe you want to edit this to say, welcome, or thank you for signing up for our Wycliffe Ministry updates, or something else. You do have the option to make it say whatever you'd like it to say. If I scroll to the top, a couple of things. One, this from, reply to, subject. You'll see merge tags here, right? So the asterisk, straight line. Don't type your name in here. Don't type your email in here. Just leave them alone. Okay, you don't want to change these at all. Just leave these fields alone. The subject, don't change the list name, but you can change this if you want. Instead of subscription confirmed, say welcome to our newsletter. Thank you for signing up. So you can put whatever you'd like there, but just don't change that merge tag. Okay, you need to keep this there. Now you'll see that they do give you a preview over here. So if you want to do that, you're welcome to do that.
Jen, we have a question really quick.
Yeah.
There's somebody who's going along in their MailChimp with you. Their screen includes a marketing permissions line, and they want to know what that means and what it's about.
I don't know. That's really my answer. If you will take a screenshot of that and send it to me, that would be really helpful. It's probably, MailChimp likes to update their system all the time. And evidently that is something that is added since I even created this. So
they've been adding a lot of features and taking away a lot of features the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, so go ahead and screenshot it. My gut reaction is that it's probably something for paid folks who have paid accounts and are using this for e-marketing. It's probably something that you can ignore. But like I said, go ahead and screenshot it and send it over, and I'll take a look. Right here, you see 3 options: build it, design it, translate it. This is where you're going to decide. You need to change. You need to switch between these in order to edit the form. Sorry, I had a hard time saying that for some reason. So to change the colors and the fonts and all of that, you want to switch over to design it, and you'll see all of these options popped up. So I'm going to walk you through this a little bit. The first thing and it's kind of like the template, right? So when we set up the MailChimp template, we changed all the fonts, we changed all the colors, we changed the sizes of some things, we added things, we took them away. It took some time to set it up, but you only had to do it once. So the same thing with these forms. It's going to take a little bit to set it up the first time if you want it to look different than the default, but you only have to do it that first time, and then it's going to look the way you want forever from that point on. Okay, so keep that in mind. The first thing that I'm going to change is the background, and so it's this is the light gray area is what we're changing. And I'm just going to change mine over to black. Again, these color codes will be in the FAQ. That will come out in. Sorry, I cannot type and talk to you. That will come out in the email that we'll send later on that has the recording and all of that. Remember, the FAQs are also on the website where you registered. So remember this website. This is where you registered for your webinar. If you went into read more, okay, you'll see that here's some written instructions for what I'm about to show you. If you prefer to have written instructions and pictures, this is a good place to get that. And this is your FAQ. This is going to have a link to the recording. It's going to have a link to the color codes that I'm sharing with you. and a bunch of other resources that are relevant to what we're talking about today. Okay, and then there's an outline, of course. So jumping back over here, you'll see that I changed the background. When I changed the background, this name disappeared because it's a black font. In order to change that, because we're going to want to make it white or some other light or bright color, is just hover over the area, and you'll see these three options show up: edit, remove, and use image. So if you want to put a picture here, you can go ahead and click use image. If you want to remove it altogether, you don't feel like it needs a name, you can click remove. That's something you can do. Don't typically recommend that because you want people to know what they're signing up for. Image would be as if you have this as like a banner typically. So if you've created some sort of decorative banner somewhere that you want to use instead of just words, this is the way that you could do it. Okay. So I'm going to go into edit, and then I'm actually going to change this. You can, and you can make it, again, whatever you want it to make it. If it's, you want to put the name of your Wycliffe ministry, if you've given like your banner a fancy name, like I know some people have done something like Nelson News or something else that's cute like that, you can go ahead and put that title here. And then once you have whatever you want the words to be, we're going to highlight that. I'm going to change the color to white. Okay, and then click Save and Close. And now you can see it again. Other things that we're going to change, we're going to move over to the header. And you'll see they put an orange box around whatever I'm about to edit. So this is the header. I'm actually not going to change anything here. And you'll see that you can't just change the color of the header. Apparently MailChimp has made the decision for you that that doesn't look good, and so they're not going to let you do it. So the next thing is the outer wrapper. And you'll see that the outer wrapper highlights that same header again, but it also highlights the footer. So what it gives you the ability to do is to basically create a frame if you want to, a colored frame. So what that looks like is changing the color here where it says background. And the first thing that you need to do is have a pound sign or a hashtag. That sign has to be there in order for the color code to work. It's part of the code. Okay, so do make sure that you type that in there. I'm going to put in Wycliffe's blue color. Okay, and so you'll see it change the top and the bottom to the same blue. The next setting that you have is not where I thought it was going to be. If you move back to header, you'll see this margin bottom and margin top. What that's referring to is the space above and below this title here. So like if you want there to be more space above the title, you can put in a number here. I usually change this to be the same. Okay, now there's space above and below the title. So that's what you're doing, is telling them how much space you want there to be. Okay. So that's basically that part. The next is body. So the foreground color is currently white, and it's this area right here. Now I know some people like to make this pale yellow or pale pink or pale blue. It's really best practices to leave it white. And the reason for that is because it makes it easier to read. And if somebody is looking at it on a mobile device, they're going to be looking at smaller text size. And the more colors that you put into this area, the more problems the person might have reading it. Okay, so we encourage you to leave that area white. But some things that you might want to change is the default text and the link style. If you're using the Wycliffe brand, you'd want to change this over to Georgia or Verdana. Font size, you can play with any of this you want. I want this to be black instead of dark gray, so I'm going to make it 0s. Okay, and same thing with the link style. You're changing the color. So if you're happy with the dark blue, you can leave it alone. If you want it to match your wrapper, you can change it to that same blue. And again, you're just changing these numbers here. Okay, so if I wanted to make it the same as my wrapper, I type in the same code, and now it matches. Okay. And that's all you can really do with the body. Forms is going to allow you to change the button. I encourage you to be careful with this changing the button, because you see right now the button is one color. When I hover my mouse over it, it changes to a different color. So you change those separately. You change the button color here and the button hovered color here. Just be careful, okay? You don't want that to become something that is weird for your partners to be using, that does something that's unexpected, that's going to cause concern. Okay, if you think about people who are uncomfortable with the internet, if you do something weird with this, like if it turns red or if it turns an unexpected color, it might cause concern for that person and it might stop. Okay, so just use wisdom if you're going to play with the colors here. Now you might want to go ahead and change the field text to the same font that you used in the body. So if you change your font type, you're going to want to change it here as well. You can leave it gray, or again, you can turn it black. I don't encourage you to use a bunch of different colors. So don't make this black and this purple and this green, okay? Because again, it's going to overwhelm your visual senses and your partners. You want this to be pretty simple. Field labels, again, we want to change the font. You want to use this, again, you want to use the same font in each place. You don't want to be changing, you don't want to have 6 different fonts on your form. Okay, keep the same font all throughout. And again, you can change the color if you want to do that. If you're using black, you could probably go ahead and change this over to black as well. Okay. Required. I wouldn't play with this, honestly. I would go ahead and just leave the rest of this alone. You can personalize it to your heart's content. If you're gonna start playing with all of this, I would pull up maybe some of MailChimp's helps through Google and look at what kind of information they have out there. You can change colors, you can change fonts, you can make things visible and invisible. You can do all sorts of things that aren't really necessary, but if you're just somebody who enjoys that, of course, feel free to play with it. But this is basically what we're looking for, right? Is a form that looks nice that our partners are going to see if we're going to use these forms at all. Okay. The last area that we're going to look at is monkey rewards. Okay, and that's just this black monkey button. And you only have 2 options, so you can make it white or you can make it black. Okay. And do something that's appropriate for your form. And one other thing that you're going to notice about this particular page is there's no way to save any of your changes, and that's right. Like, you're not missing it. If you go away, it's going to save it automatically. That was something that frightened me when I first did this because I spent a lot of time on it before I noticed that there wasn't a save button. So don't let that panic you. There really isn't one. Okay. Within MailChimp, what I recommend is just check the page for a save button, because some places there is a save button, other places there's not. If you can't find one, there probably isn't one. If there is one, it's important to save it. Okay, I don't know why they don't do that consistently, but they don't. And so just keep that in mind as you're working through different settings and stuff, that sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. So that's really it for the final welcome email. That's all you got to do with it. The next thing that we're going to look at is
Yeah. Before we move on, we've got another question on the builder.
Sure.
Is there a way to add space to the left of the header so it's not right up against the edge?
I don't think there is.
Can you actually put a manual space in there?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. There you go.
You could. Yep. You could also potentially just leave the spaces off and center it, and you would put it right in the middle. So that's another option.
And if you don't have a colored background, it won't look like it's right up on the edge either.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it'll have space around it.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you turn the section white and get rid of this, so you don't have any colors. Okay. So the next thing that we're going to look at is the unsubscribe confirmation form, which they call a goodbye email. Okay. And so this is a goodbye email, and you see a lot of it's already done for us. The colors have already been changed. There's already the space that's there. They've kept a lot of the settings that we already have, so we don't have to make that many changes. The things that you would want to change, if you want to change this, we're sorry to see you go, you just hit edit and change the text like you would in the other word editor. Okay. And you'll notice they actually already have this message here. Was this a mistake? Did you forward one of our emails to a friend? Okay, so they already kind of give a warning message. This can't be changed. This part can. Keep in mind that if you change one of the colors or fonts here, it's going to change in all of your forms. So just know that that has a consequence if you change something here. Don't think that you're changing it here and not somewhere else. Okay. So that's it. You can change the subject line if you want. So if you want this to say something else, feel free to do that. But there really isn't anything else to share about that. Okay, so it's already set up for you. So the next thing that we're going to look at is the subscribe forms, the sign up forms. This does have a couple of extra features. But again, we're going to scroll down and you're going to see a lot of this is already set up for you. Now, one thing you'll notice is the margin went away from the top. I have tried to fix that and play with that, and for some reason it doesn't. So what you can do instead, if that really bothers you, is just hit enter so there's a space over it, and now it kind of looks like there is. Okay, so that's a workaround if you really like that space on the top. First is you'll see that you can click to add a message. So again, this is somebody who is subscribing or signing up for your newsletter for the first time. Okay, so if you want to put a little description there about what they can expect, you know, maybe you send it out once every 3 months. I send mine out every 3 weeks. So just letting people know how often they can expect to receive an update from you. You could put a little thank you message there. You could say what kind of things you typically share in your messages, or you could put nothing at all. Okay? It's just an opportunity for you to put a description of some sort in with your subscribe forms. You'll see that there's several different fields here. These two blue fields, again, they're only going to show up if you synced it up with P&T. If you didn't do that, you probably don't have these blue ones. Now you'll notice that they're hidden. So right now, if I sent my subscribe form to somebody, they wouldn't see these two fields. If you want to delete them all together, you just click on one and hit delete, or you can make it visible. Maybe you want people to put in their greeting. That's fine. You just make it visible and people will be able to see it. I'm going to go ahead and delete mine. Okay. So you have to type in the word delete and then hit delete, and that field is gone. You'll see that they already have 3 fields in here: email address, first name, and last name. The email address is not one that you can change too much. It's an email program, so it doesn't make sense to remove the email from the subscribe form because then they can't really subscribe. First name and last name, these you'll see are technically optional. People can choose to or to not fill in the fields. I typically recommend you coming in here and making them required fields. And the reason I recommend that is because if somebody's going to join your mailing list, I want to know who's on my list. You know, if I want to write them a personal letter or I want to reach out to them for some reason, I want to know their name. And so I personally make this something that's required. Now, if you'll see, I made these required and then went to the next one, and then it unchecked. This is one of the areas where you have to save it. Okay, so again, you need to make sure you're paying attention to when they do and don't ask you to save. So I do have to hit save. Same thing with the first name. I have to turn it on and then click save. You'll see that it has a default merge tag value. I've not played with this enough to really know how to use that well, but feel free to play with it if it's something that you're interested in. Help text is if you don't think people will understand that they're meant to type their first name in there, you could write out, type in your first name. So if you have a field that is ambiguous or you think people might not understand, then you have the ability to write in a description. Obviously, you probably don't need to for these 3 fields. But then once you've made your changes, click save. You can reorder the fields. So if you want email address to be the last thing that they do, you can just click on it and drag it down, and it'll reorder them. So if that's something that you like to do, feel free. You can also add other fields to what's already here. So like right now I'm on this field settings section. If I switch over to add a field, it's going to give me a whole bunch of options of things that I can add. So if you're wanting to collect people's physical addresses, you can actually add that into your form. Okay, so now they have the option to give you their address. Now I don't recommend that you make this a required field because maybe people don't want you to have their address, but they're okay with you emailing them. So I wouldn't make this required, but if it is something that you're trying to gather, feel free to add your field here. If you do end up using MailChimp Subscribe on the tablet that I told you I'm not going to be able to show you today because of the technology giving me problems, you have to put the fields in here in order for them to show up on your tablet device. So if you want them on that app that you're going to share at church, or you're going to share with individuals, you need to put it here first in order to get it over there. Okay. What else? So again, we need to click Save Field so that it stays put. And again, you can play with these. You can move them up and down and all of that. If you want this to be plain text, if you know you're going to be giving this to a lot of people who can't do the colors and images and all of that, you can switch it over, and then you have your subscribe button. All right, and that's really all there is to setting it up. In order to share the subscribe form, there's a couple of ways you can do it. You can see them all up here. Make sure this is turned on. First is this URL. So you can send it as a hyperlink in an email. You can send the link itself. If you have a web page, you can create a button if you wanted to. There's a lot of ways that you can use that link. With the Facebook or Twitter, so if you want to share your subscribe page onto your feed, this is a way for you to do it. The QR code. Now, if you want to use these buttons, you're going to have to integrate your account. Okay, so last week we talked about this is how you integrate Facebook. Here's where you can integrate Twitter. You have to do that first before you can use these features. If you need help doing that, just go ahead and watch the webinar from last week, and I walk you through step by step on how to do that. If you get stuck, go ahead and email me, and I'm happy to help. The last is this QR code. So if you're not familiar with this, it's usually people have apps on their phones that scan these codes, and so they can scan it with their phone, and then it'll open up your newsletter on their phone. Same thing with the tablet. If people scan it with their tablet apps, it would open up their newsletter on their tablet. If that's something that you want to include, you can take a screenshot of it or save it as an image. You'll see this small, medium, large. You can click on it and save it as an image. And I've seen people insert it into their newsletters at the bottom or in the footer or something like that. I think I've seen, like, you can also use this on Facebook. So if you want to stick it on Facebook as a way for people to subscribe to your newsletter or their social media, there's several ways. There's lots of creative ways that you can use this. So that is an option that's available to you. And the last thing that I wanted to show you today is the forward to a friend option. So we're going to look at the forward to a friend form. Again, this is if you have friends who are advocates who are regularly forwarding your emails to other people, the safest way to do that is to have this forward to a friend form. Okay, and this forward to a friend form is going to look similar to what you're looking at here. You probably really don't need to set anything up. Where is... Okay. I don't see the URL or anything that you would use for this. Oh, I know why, because it's a merge tag. Okay. So if you, sorry, I just had a brain space there for a second. You'll notice that there's no URL that you can grab to use to share this. And the reason for that is because you're actually going to use a merge tag to share it. So it's something that you're actually going to insert directly into your campaign. And you're going to have to train people to use this. Okay, so again, this isn't something that probably most people are familiar with. But if you have advocates who'd like to forward your emails, this is something that you would want to give them. If, however, you have a church who emails it out to a bunch of people, this is not really going to be that helpful for them, because they would have to say they're sending it out to 50 people. They'd have to do this 50 times. Probably the church secretary is not willing to do that. Okay, so instead, you'd want to go to your campaign and use that. Let me show you what I'm talking about. This view email in your browser, they'd want to use that link and then grab the URL and use that. That's going to be the best way for your churches to share it with other people. The reason that way is better than just forwarding it is, again, because if they use that link, they won't be able to unsubscribe the church. They would just be unsubscribing themselves. So that's a kind of a safe way for churches to do that if you're able to help them understand how to do that well. Okay. With the forward to a friend, if you're going to include that into your campaign, you can either do it as a hyperlink, so you could actually write out the words, click here to forward this to a friend. Or you can do it as a button. Okay, so you do it as a button. And what you want to do is change this. You can leave this as I think you actually leave it as a web address. But then you type in type in what I'm about to type. Okay, so you type in this merge tag, click save and close, and now this button is going to work as a way for people to forward your newsletters. Okay, so obviously you wouldn't want to leave it as buy now, and you want to change colors and sizes and all of that. But I go over all of that in the campaign webinar. So if you need to know how to work with buttons, that's where you find that information. You can come to one of our workshops. We can help you there. Again, you can reach out to me privately. But just to see what it looks like. Okay, so people can click on that, and it brought me to the forward to a friend. Okay, so you're just creating a button that has this form with it. This is the reCAPTCHA. Okay, so they're showing that they're not a robot. All right, so that's all there is to the forward to a friend. Again, you saw it was automatically set up once I set up the other form. There's minimal amounts of changes that you had to make for each of those. And that's all we planned to share with you today. So we went over merge tags. We went over a variety of different forms that you can use. It's just all ways that you could personalize your MailChimp experience. Okay? So if you want to get fancy with things, this is the way you can do it. None of these are required in order for you to use MailChimp. It's just kind of taking your experience to the next level. Again, I'm not able to teach you MailChimp Subscribe today, but I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks to figure out why it's not letting me do that so that I can create a special training video for you that will just teach you that program. If not, I have some other ways to get you access to that material if it's something that you're interested in. And I'll try to post that into Touchpoints and into the PD Facebook account if that's something that you're interested in. So thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. I'm happy to sit around and answer any other questions that you guys might have. Again, you're going to get a recording of this either later today, by the end of the week. Okay, so my schedule is a little crazy this week, but by the end of the week, you will get an email that has a link to this recording, has a link to other resources, the FAQ, the survey, and that kind of thing. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm going to go ahead and end the recording right now. But again, I'll stay around for the next 5 to 10 minutes if you guys have other questions. All right, so thank you for joining us.